Hi guys. Today we're going to talk about a few different things. First, we're going to talk about relative file locations and how to figure out where you're going to put your images, CSS file scripts, stuff like that on the file system. Second, we're going to talk about how to enter comments into CSS. Then we'll talk about the relationship between different elements, what is a child, what is a parent, and then finally we're going to talk about how to use selectors to take advantage of those relationships to make it easier to automatically style certain elements in certain ways in your page. So let's get started with relative file locations. Now, if you look at your HTML file, what you'll see is, let me open one up here, you'll see that whenever there are file names, right now it probably just has the file name, like today.css or grant.jpg. That's another one that I think I have somewhere down here. Yep, grant.jpg. So you'll see it just has the file name. And the reason why I did that early on was so that you could just drop the file in the same folder as your HTML file and not have to worry about how to find it. Now, the way relative file structures works is basically wherever your HTML file is, that's your home base. So right now my HTML file, it's 2013-1107.html, not a very good name, I know. That's sitting on the desktop. So you can think about the desktop as my home base for right now. Anything that I try to pull, a JPEG, a PNG, a CSS file, has to be at least in that desktop folder. If I were to put it in like C, right here, if I were to put it in, I don't know, this folder here, inetpub, the HTML file that I'm using doesn't know how to find that. So it's not in anywhere near the same directory as the HTML file, so it just wouldn't work. So I've got this HTML file on my desktop. What my HTML file can see is any folder or file that is on the desktop. So for instance, I've got this folder called first level on my desktop. So if I wanted to call a file in first level, then all I'd have to do is say first level and then the name of the file. I could also pull something from this store folder over here or this storage folder over here. Basically, if you see a file folder in the same directory as your HTML file, like this is the desktop, anything in the desktop directory, you can use that to call a folder. But if there's not, or sorry, call a file. But if there's not a folder with that name inside of the desktop folder, then you're out of luck. So if I were to copy my HTML file to CINetPub, then I could use any of these folders here and no other folders to store files that my HTML file needs to see. So how does this look in the real world? Well, right now you can see I've got a broken image right here. And if we take a look at the HTML, you'll see why. All it says is grant.jpg, right, in this image source. So you'll notice that there's no JPEG file on the desktop. If I were to copy my grant.jpg file over here and reload the page, you'll see there goes Mr. Grant. He's back. But I'm going to put him in here and refresh the page and show you it's broken again, and then show you how to pull up that file in this folder. So we saw earlier that the desktop has this file, a folder called first level. So if I want to leave my grant.jpg image in that folder, I would just say first level / and then grant.jpg. Now it's important that you note that I didn't put a slash or C:\/ or / or anything like that. You always start with just the file folder name without anything else, then a / and then the name of the image. So I'm going to save that and go back and refresh, and there he is again. Now, the reason why you might want to put your image in a different folder other than the one that your HTML file is in is sometimes people like to put all of their images inside a folder so that they don't have their main home folder all cluttered up with different things. Like you can put your images in one folder, your CSS files in a different folder, scripts if you have them in another folder. It makes it more organized, cleaner. That's the way a lot of people like to do it. So let's say now that I move this grant image into this second level folder. So now it's going to actually disappear again, right? Because it doesn't know how to find it. So it's actually in first level / second level. So all I have to do is go over here and say first level / second level / and then save it and come back. And there it is again. So basically, after this first level folder, you just do /, then the next folder name and /, and if it's inside of a folder that's inside of another folder, then you do / and then that folder name / until you get to the file. Hopefully this is pretty easy for you to figure out, but I know there may be questions, ask around, and then come see me if it's still a little unclear. So now we're going to move on. And the next thing I want to show you is CSS comments. The way CSS comments work are you need to basically do a / and a star, and then type some text, and then do another star and a /, and then you're done with your comment. What this does is it allows you kind of a handy way to type notes about what you're doing in a CSS file. Because sometimes, like, so a lot of this stuff you're learning for the first time, and if you want to try to remember, okay, what does this do exactly, or what is this, then you type a note to yourself. This is something that a lot of programmers talked about on your field trip, right? Like, they write a code comment so that they remember, oh yeah, this is why I did this. And it's really handy. Another thing it's really handy for is it's handy for like temporarily removing a change or removing something that you did to see if you can fix a problem. So let's say I've got an H2 element selector with background color tomato. I'm going to save that, and you should see that it didn't work. Well, clearly I've done something wrong. Oh, there it is, refreshed. So now you see, okay, here are my H2s. Let's say I'm trying to figure out, like, maybe I don't like the way that looks. So I'm going to put a code comment around that. So I put my / star on one side of it, and then on the other side of it, I do my * / on the other side, and I hit save and refresh, and look, my change is gone. My tomato background color is gone. And that way, if I decide, no, I like it better the way it is, I can save it and come back and refresh, and now my change is back without having to like cut the code and possibly lose it on the clipboard or something like that. This is a super easy way to temporarily remove code, and it's great for debugging. If something isn't working the way you expect it, then you say, okay, let me comment out this piece of code and see if it works now. And let me try commenting out more and more and more until I eventually solve the problem. Okay, so there are your code comments. As I mentioned in the assignment for today, I want you to make sure that you are commenting your code. You're typing like, this is an H2, this is an element selector that changes all H2s to tomato. So for all of your CSS entries today, I want you to put in a code comment like this one, all right? All right, now let's go on to advanced selectors. Now, it's key, we talked about this at the beginning of class, but it's key to remember that elements, when we talk about elements in an HTML file, you have to remember their relationship. They have siblings, they have parents, they have children, there are also descendants. So what is a child? A child is an element that is inside of another element. Kind of an easy way to see that is If I close this body tag, like if I click on the little minus sign next to this body tag, everything disappears. Everything inside of that body tag is a descendant. However, only things that are directly inside of the body tag and not inside of anything else are children. So this H1 is a child of the body element. So is this H2, and so is this P. However, this A here is actually inside of the P element, the paragraph element. So this A is a descendant of the body tag, but it's not a child of the body tag. It's like a grandchild, you know? So you wouldn't say that you were a child of your grandmother, but you're a descendant of your grandmother, right? You're related. Next one would be siblings, right? Siblings are on the same level or inside, they are not children and they are not descendants of something. So for instance, this H1 and this H2, they're both siblings because they're on the same level. Let's go to this unordered list here. These guys, these LIs, are all siblings. They're on the same level. These A's are not, because these A's are all inside of the line tag, right? The list tag. So if you think about it like this, they're actually, I guess they're kind of like cousins or something. So if this is, if these guys are siblings, these are each children of the siblings, so that makes these guys cousins, although we don't really talk about them as cousins. So siblings are on the same level as their other siblings. In this table, the TRs are siblings of each other, and these 3 TDs are siblings, but they're not siblings of these 3 TDs down here. You have to think about it a little bit like a family tree. Which is going to be a little hard for you to figure out at first, and it's going to take some trial and error. You'll just have to experiment a little bit with your CSS until you figure it out. Now that you know the difference between descendants, children, and siblings, I'm going to show you how to take advantage of that with CSS. So first, let's start with a descendant selector. Some of you yesterday, when you were trying to select multiple elements, you know, like H2, comma, H1, were not putting the comma in, and you were doing H2 space H1. And when you don't have the comma in, what that does is it selects all descendants. So as I was saying, like the body tag has everything inside of the body tag is a descendant. So if you were to do body and then H2, every H2 tag, no matter where it was in the document, would be selected for your CSS. I'm going to give you an example of a descendant to see what I mean. So I'm going to go into the unordered list. There is a file, or sorry, there's an element called, oh, where is it? There it is, an A. There's an A anchor element that is inside of the unordered list. There's also an anchor element that is just in the body, right? What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, like, I only want links, A tags, A elements that are inside of the unordered list to look a certain way. And I want all the rest of the links to look a different way. So I'm going to say UL space A background color cyan. And that'll do it. And I'll save it and come back, and you'll see these guys here all got background color, but this link here and this link here did not. That's because these guys are all descendants of the unordered list. All right? Next one up is going to be child selectors. So let's say that I don't want all descendants of an element. I just want the direct children, not the grandchildren or the great-grandchildren of an element to get a certain style. So for that, I am going to say, let's say anchor tags, A tags of a paragraph element. So the paragraph element, and then I do this greater than symbol A, then space, and then I'm going to say that's going to get a background color of dark olive green. And I'm going to make the color of the text white. And if I save it, come back here, you'll see that, all right, if here are my two links. These are children of paragraph tags. Now let's try commenting out this one here, and you'll see that even though these are not siblings of a paragraph, you know, they're not children either. So they don't get styled at all. So anytime you want to have a child of an element get a style, you use that greater than symbol. Next one up, adjacent siblings. So let's say you wanted to have the first paragraph after a heading have a little bit more space between the heading and the paragraph. But then, like, you don't want to have all the paragraphs have a bunch of space between them, right? So if I were to say P for paragraph and then top margin 60 pixels, oh, forgot that, and save, and come back here. Oh, I'm sorry, it's margin top. The margin is something that you're going to learn about later. Don't worry about it for right now. So now you see there's tons of space between all these paragraphs. But I only want this first bit to have the space and all the rest of the paragraphs to look normal. What I would do is I would use an adjacent sibling selector. And what that means is that only the siblings that are right next to the element that I choose will get affected. So if I were to say only the sibling, the adjacent sibling of the H2 gets this change. So this P here is right next to the H2, so it would get affected, but this P is not next to an H2, so it wouldn't get affected, and same with this one. Let's show you what I mean. So I'm going to do H2 plus P. That's going to say that any P that is an adjacent sibling of an H2 gets that style. So I saved it, I come back here, and look, these paragraphs got right in line, and this one still has a nice big space between it exactly the way I want it to. This one has the big space, but this one isn't adjacent to an H2, and neither is this one, so it doesn't get the space. And same with these guys. All right? So that's an adjacent sibling. Finally, we're going to do actually, I'm going to give you one more after this. So next, we'll do a general sibling selector. And what the general sibling selector will do is it will say any sibling of an element that you choose is going to get styled a certain way. So let's say I want all of my paragraphs after that are siblings of a table to have a certain style, like a font change or something like that. What do? Well, what you do instead of using the plus is you use a tilde. So let's say I want all of my paragraphs that are siblings, general siblings of a table to have a style. I'll do table tilde P, and then let's see, what do I want to do? How about background color blue and color white. So I save it. And you'll see even siblings that are not right next to the table get selected, right? They still get the style. Same with this one here, right? So if I had 5 more paragraphs, all of them would have a background color blue as well. Here's the last one I'm going to show you, and then you can go off and do your thing. The last item I want to show you is what's called an attribute selector. What an attribute selector allows you to do is it allows you to say, well, let's look through the HTML and pick an attribute. Like, let's say type equals button, right? This is an attribute, right? Anything that equals something else inside of an HTML is an attribute. So this type is an attribute, this value is an attribute, this name is an attribute, and actually even classes are attributes, right? But we have our own selector for class, so we don't really need to worry about class or ID. But a useful way to think about attribute selectors is like, let's say you want links that open in a new tab or new window to look different than a link that doesn't. You have to use an attribute in order to open a link in a new window. So you can use that attribute selector in order to change the link text. In this case, what I want to do is I want to change the way this submit button looks. See, it's kind of plain, boring, whatever. I'm going to create an attribute selector that that changes that. So what I'm going to use is the attribute is, well, let's see. It's an input element with a type attribute. So I'm going to do input and then in brackets do type. Now if I just did type and bracket without using the type equals button, it would select everything with a type attribute. So let me show you what I mean. Background color steel blue and save. So both the input box and the submit button got that steel blue. But I don't want the input box to have a color. I just want the submit button to look cool. So I'm going to go back here, and instead of just doing type, I'm going to say type equals, and what was the type again? I think it was button, right? So type equals button. I'm going to make it look just like this. In fact, I can copy and paste it in there. Type equals button. So now if I save this and come back, now just the button has the style. So I'm going to add a couple of other things to make it look cool. Width will be 80 pixels. How about display block? Some of these things you don't know about now, but you will learn about later on. Just trust me when I say that we'll get there on it. Color white and margin left 135 pixels. So let me save it and refresh, and you'll see, hey, look, it's a cooler looking submit button than what I had before. So these are the different sorts of more advanced selectors you can use. There are all sorts of cases where you'll want to use them, like especially, you know, the first paragraph in a section you might want to look different, or links in certain places you'll want to look one way, and links in other places you want to look a different way. As you come up with or come upon more difficult challenges, keep these advanced selectors in mind. Try out the challenges I gave you for the day, and let me know if you have any questions. Thanks, guys.